Hello, hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books. Thank you so much for coming back to listen to more of Sara's War. Today we are on Chapter 46. Here we go. Chapter 46, In the Wrong Mind. Looks like everything is in order for the night shift, Dr. Andrews, Randy says to me. Yes, we've done it again, I say, forcing a smile. You look exhausted. Come on, I'll walk you to your tent. Reluctantly, I submit to the stark and haunting thought. Randy unfolds the retractable ladder and motions for me to climb first. It's pitch black outside. My feet find the dirt ground, and Randy is up with me before I even finish standing. I amble in the direction of my tent, but immediately trip over a rock or stick or something. Randy catches me by the waist and allows me to lean on him as we continue walking. I really wish you would have at least taken a nap today, Sara, Randy criticizes lightly. You wouldn't have allowed any of your nurses to work all day after they worked the entire night before. I have my reasons, I mutter. Randy says nothing else as he escorts me all the way to my tent. Have a good sleep, Sara, he says, unzipping my tent door for me. I'll see you in the morning. I nod lazily. Night, Randy, I say as I step inside. I toss off my shoes and climb into my sleeping bag, too drained to even change out of my clothes. I am as tired as I can ever remember being. My eyes close right away, and my body is grateful to no longer be moving as I slowly drift off to sleep. Without realizing any time has passed, I startle awake after reliving the exact same nightmare I had the night previous. My lungs feel hollow as I gasp for air. I pat my matted hair and run a hand down my wet cheeks. I can't stay in here. I stuff on my shoes, stalk out of my tent, and dash back to the bomb shelter. I open the hatch with one great heave and jump in. My feet slam down hard on the cement floor, as well as my hands. What is it, doctor? Molly asks, stalking over to me. Then she stops short and gasps. Her expression shifts from surprise to utter shock. Dr. Andrews, what happened? She cries. Nothing, I say, brushing off my hands. Nothing? She sounds exasperated. What is going on with you? Nothing, I repeat as I stride past her. Why aren't you sleeping? She calls to me. I stop in my tracks and turn to face her. Because I hate that blasted tent, I shout. Molly's head jolts back, her face smeared with astonishment. She doesn't speak, but just stares at me in downright confusion. I twist back around and continue walking. Where am I going? Then I spot the old wooden chair at the back wall. There. I will sleep there. Once I reach my seat, I plop myself into it and put my elbows on my legs and my head in my hands. A new sob escapes my throat. I hear a nearby voice saying, "Don't take me, don't take me, don't take me." The voice stops when I recognize it as my own. My head leans against a hard, cold wall. My entire body is frozen. My feet feel molded to the floor. My eyes are plastered shut. My arms are glued to something. What are my arms on? Oh, that's right, I'm in a chair. My immovable body breaks out of its frozen state to shiver as I recall what brought me to this chair. I think back to last night. I remember being with Molly and cringe mentally as I recall her witnessing my breakdown. Great. What else happened last night? Oh yes, Molly tried to put a catheter in someone. Instead of pricking the patient's vein, she had just stabbed the poor girl's arm. Did this all happen in the same night? Suddenly I'm aware of distant voices. I want to open my eyes to see who's speaking, but they're still plastered shut. What? She was here last night again? Did she work? I recognize this baritone voice. I can picture his red fiery hair. What's his name again? She tried to, in between her ranting and crying. I'm telling you, she is losing it. She is literally going crazy. This is a woman's voice. A voice I heard a lot last night. Oh, it's Molly. It must be Molly. This all started 2 nights ago, right? What happened beforehand that would make her flip out like this? Says the baritone again. Muffled murmurs scatter. Don't know. Nothing happened. Maybe the sound of all the cannons is freaking her out. But Kate, that doesn't make any sense either, says the baritone. Before Big Rock, she was in Tallahassee for almost a year. There were cannons galore there, and she was fine." "How do you know she was fine?" asks Molly. "Why would she be put into a head position if she hadn't proved she could handle it in country?" "Maybe those cannon terrors are coming back to her," Molly proposes. "Yeah," says the other voice again. It's Kate, I assume, since the baritone called her that. "It must be something like post-war trauma, but before the war is over." Makes sense. "She's gonna get sacked." The baritone groans. "What are we going to do?" "You're going to have to request for another doctor," says the voice of Kate. "We don't know enough stuff about medications." Another groan, from Molly, I think. "I know. Last night, I went to give a private appeal for the pain in his leg and appeal for anxiety. I was sure it was okay. Fortunately, that was during one of the doctor's semi-with-it moments. And she said, 'What? No! Percocet and Xanax don't mix when he's already on antihistamines.' Even in her delusional state, she remembered the antihistamines and I didn't. Then she spouted off some textbook explanation of why. I felt kind of stupid when I realized how much she usually dumbs it down for me." Some more murmurs. "Well, they do say if you know something so well you can do it in your sleep," says Kate. "Oh, speaking of which, guess what she said last night?" I hear whisperings and mumblings, but no clear words. Suddenly my ears are ringing with loud shrilling sounds. It startles me so much my eyes pop open. I see a group of people in white jackets gathered in a jagged circle, all of them laughing. Oh, that's what the shrilling noise was. Laughter. But what are they laughing at? "She said that in her sleep? About Colonel Haskins?" says a blonde woman, whom I realize must be Kate as I connect her voice in my mind to her face. Too bad it won't work out for them, now that the doctor is crazy. Colonel Haskins. I know him. His name is Jack. Yes, it's definitely Jack. The small Jubilee suddenly stops, as a red-haired man whispers something while looking directly at me. Squishing through a couple of people, he walks in my direction. I know this man as my head nurse, but why can't I remember his name? It starts with an R, like his red hair. He's almost in front of me, but turns to the side instead. I hear a screeching, scratching noise. Oh, he's pulling up a chair. The red-haired man sinks heavily into his new seat. "How are you, Dr. Andrews?" he asks. My lips part to speak, but a cough comes out instead. Instinctively, I cover my mouth as I hack away. The nameless man rolls his eyes. "This is what you get for not sleeping," he chides. "Why did you try to work last night? What were you thinking?" Automatically, I feel defensive for some reason. "Molly doesn't know how to put a catheter in," I croak. "Yeah, well," he starts to say, but then he stops to run his fingers through his red hair, which happens to be sticking straight up. Was his hair normally like this? "There are lots of things we can't do without you," he says. "But you can't help us either if you don't get some sleep." Again, I feel defensive. I was just sleeping now, wasn't I? "Why don't you just go sleep in your tent like a normal person? What is going on with you?" I open my mouth to speak, but somebody else beats me to it. "Randy!" Oh, that's his name. Randy Reynolds. The private has an infection in his leg. Any ideas? This is definitely Molly's voice, although I can't see her. Randy hesitates as he twists his head in her direction. "Dicloxacillin," I say without thinking. Randy turns to face me again. "You sure?" I nod once. "Positive, Randy Reynolds." Randy furrows his brow at me, then twists his head around again. The doctor says dicloxacillin," he calls. Molly's head pokes around Randy and into my view. She sighs and shakes her head. "Okay," she says loudly. Randy turns to me again with new urgency. "Sara, you have to tell me what's going on with you. What happened? You should talk about it." "Nothing happened, Randy Reynolds," I say, happy to have remembered his name again. Randy sighs heavily and his mouth hardens with frustration. What? Does he expect me to tell him the truth? "Oh, hi, friend," I monologue in my head. "Did you know that I allowed my daughter to be murdered?" My entire body flinches at the dreadful thought. I take a deep breath, but my lungs feel hollow. I can hear more tears rushing behind my eyes, waiting to be released. I place one hand at my temple. Ugh, my head hurts. Randy leans closer to me now. "Something happened, Sara. You're acting totally unlike yourself, and you're irresponsible. It's hard enough as it is to get sleep around here, but you are actively avoiding it. Why are you doing that? The longer Randy talks, the more incredulous he sounds. I get sleep, I dispute. You just saw me sleeping. That's because you can't help it, Randy cries. Why are you fighting it so much? Because I'm afraid of being kidnapped, that's why, I shout in my head. Randy's face softens as does his tone. What are you afraid of, Sara? Is it the cannons? You and I can have a talk about cannons, you know. If I get hit by a cannon, I'll die quickly. I'm not afraid of a cannon. Randy cocks his head. Then what is it? I sigh heavily, suddenly very irritated. Is it the stress or the lack of sleep that's doing this to my nerves? Randy's tone is softer now, almost sweet. Molly said you were crying last night, Sara. Why were you crying? Although he asks this kindly, my response is not kind. Because I'm in a war, Randy. Do I have a reason to be happy? Randy stares at me in silence for a moment. You found a way before, he says in his same calm tone. That's another reason we all need you. I roll my eyes and lean my head back against the wall. If you keep this up, Randy says, I'll have no choice but to report you. Ugh. My mind does not have room for all of this. The tears waiting to spill now push their way through and flow slowly onto my cheeks. Randy gazes at me with soft sympathy. Will you go to sleep now, Sara? How about in your tent where there's less interruption? You think there are less interruptions outside? There's a war going on out there, you know, I say cynically. A new wave of guilt washes through me. Why am I being so mean to him? Randy's mouth hardens again as he scratches his head angrily. It appears I may have drawn his line of patience. And here I always thought you were a woman with good sense. Fine. Sleep in the stupid chair, he spits. Abruptly he stands, screeching his chair across the floor again. I don't know where he takes it, as I'm too tired to move my head. I'm going to work today, I announce. Randy spins to give me a look of astonishment. You are out of your mind unbelievable, he says, exasperated. Do whatever you want since I won't be able to stop you. But if you start acting crazy, I'm taking you away. Our patients don't need to think their doctor is delusional. Oh, that's real swell, Reynolds, I exclaim. You know, you're not the authority around here. I am now, Randy says with confidence. Then he rolls his eyes in his head all at once. But I'm not a doctor and I don't know anything, he yells to no one in particular. He looks directly at me again. I wish you would let me help you, Sara. You need help. Help? I am beyond help. My body starts to tremble with sorrow and fear and anger, twisting my gut into frayed knots, which somehow feels exposed to the world. Why can't I control any of it anymore? I bonk my head hard on the wall behind me. Blast, I am so tired. I wish I could stop thinking. I jolt awake to buzzing and ringing. Sheesh, it is noisy in here. I scan the room in front of me. The bomb shelter is full of frantic activity. All of my nurses are busy bandaging or talking with the patient. And I notice there are several more patients not being seen. Ignoring my protesting muscles, I stand up out of my chair. My aching head is screaming at me, but I force myself to walk anyway. I walk to the man closest to me, who has no one attending to him. He holds a rag to his bleeding neck. Then I spot someone behind him, sitting up on a gurney. His face is blue. I rush to his side. He puts both hands around his neck, signaling that he's choking. I tilt his head back and try to dislodge the obstruction. It's too far back. I yank the man to his feet and step behind him as I wrap my arms around his torso and push with all my might below his sternum. It's a good thing this man is not too big, otherwise this might be impossible for me. After 3 strenuous heaves, a piece of food flies across the room. The man hacks and wheezes so violently that almost every head turns in our direction. He was choking, I announce. Why would anyone let him eat after giving him a dose of Valium? I ask, holding up the bottle of liquid. This stuff knocks you out. Of course he had a hard time chewing. Randy and Kate are standing together, both looking ashamed. I make my way over to them. I'm working the rest of the day, I tell them. You only slept 45 minutes, Randy protests. It's a good thing, too, I say. Otherwise that man would have choked to death. Randy and Kate share a look, but reluctantly consent. I head back to the man with the rag on his neck. He has about a dozen metal slivers piercing through his skin. I make my way to a cart with several tools on it, but somehow I lose my footing, causing both the cart and myself to tumble to the ground. Kate rushes over and helps me pick up the spilled items. Are you sure you're all right? I'm fine. I just need tweezers and a needle. After Kate helps me locate my tools, I stand up to walk. Doctor, your gloves, says Kate. I turn around to see her holding a pair of latex gloves. Oh, right, I need those. Kate stares at me with dismay, but I ignore her so I can get to my patient. He is not very pleasant while I take his slivers out. He does nothing but complain. I'm happy when I'm through with him. I find another patient who clearly has a dislocated shoulder. I put my hands on him to snap it back in place, but before I do, Molly cries, "No, it's a broken collarbone!" I take a step back. I almost made it worse. And before I know it, I've burst into tears. The soldier with the broken collarbone twists his head to look at me. You are one baby of a doctor. This comment for some reason makes me irate. You jerk, I yell at him. You don't know anything. Molly pulls on my arm. Stop it, she whispers fiercely. She turns her head to look over her shoulder. Randy, she calls. But I'm still glaring at the insulting soldier. I should snap your shoulder anyway. Molly looks at me with anxious astonishment. Stop it! Randy comes racing to my side. Why don't you take a break, he suggests, tugging me by the arm and pulling me away from the soldier. She is insane, the soldier says to Randy. Randy ignores him and continues to pull me away. And you're rude and ungrateful, I call over my shoulder. Despite my protests, Randy successfully drags me to the other end of the vast room and around the corner to the one and only tiny nook of the bomb shelter, where there's a slop sink, a bunch of towels hanging from nails on the wall, and a large water bucket on the floor. Randy looks completely baffled. I don't know who you are anymore, he says, throwing his arms up in the air. But don't you dare show your face in there again. Don't even think about it, he says sternly. I can tell he's trying to keep his voice down. Fine, I hiss. Randy scratches both his hands across his head, gives me one last look of bewilderment, and turns to walk away. I sit on the cold cement floor and pull my knees up to my chest. A wave of guilt and shame wash over me. What did I just do? Oh no, oh no, oh no. I sit on the cement floor all afternoon. Nurses come in and out of the cleaning corner, as we call it, to rinse rags, wash their hands, etc. I know they see me, but they say nothing. Perhaps they think I'm still angry. But I'm not angry, I'm numb. Numb with an overcoat of guilt. Have you slept at all? Says a sweet voice. I glance up to see Molly gazing down at me. Not that I remember, I admit. Molly sighs. You won't get better until you sleep, and talk about whatever is going on. Randy called for a temporary replacement doctor until you get over this. I don't think I will ever get over it, I counter. I know you don't, but you will, says Molly, as she sorts through some towels on a fold-out table. Most of the noise inside is gone, and the air smells of lemon Lysol. I force my rigid body to stand, and I walk stiffly past Molly to enter the large open space of the bomb shelter. I spot Randy a few feet away from me, scrubbing the ground hard with a cloth rag. Don't tell me you're awake already, Sara, Randy says to me, without looking up from his scrubbing. I almost correct him to explain that I wasn't sleeping at all when he says, I was just about to carry you out to your tent. I am not sleeping in that thing, I protest. It comes out quite weak, though, as my voice is raspy and crackling. You're right, you probably won't sleep, Randy agrees in an angry voice. I never thought it was possible to die of sleep deprivation, but you just might prove me wrong. Are you still mad at me? Randy slaps his rag down hard on the floor. You made a mess of everything today, Sara. Everything. Hey, I didn't see you do the Heimlich, I gripe. Okay, so you did one thing right, Randy says, getting to his feet. That doesn't make up for everything else. I want to protest again, but I'm distracted by the lack of nurses in the room. Where is everybody? They left to go get some sleep, Randy hints, his voice full of irritation. I look around the room again. There are 6 patients still here. 2 are totally zonked out. The other 4 appear quite interested in our conversation. You're making a bit of a scene, Randy, I tell him. Randy throws his rags into a basket as he half laughs, half growls. Oh, no, you don't. You are not going to say that after what you did today. A couple of soldiers laugh in unison. One shakes his head, and the other just stares at me. Randy says nothing more and walks away with his basket. "Come on, Randy, let me help you," I offer. "Go sleep in your chair," Randy commands, without stopping or turning around. Since when did Randy talk to me like this? And Molly is actually being sweet. This is definitely backwards. My initial reaction is to follow Randy anyway, but my aching muscles collapse and I fall to the floor. I close my eyes, and before I know it, I'm running as fast as I can. My side aches and my throat burns, probably because I've been screaming Emma's name for so long. Where is she? I look under and over and behind every park bench and every bush and every tree, but I still cannot find her. Frantic terror grips inside my chest. I hear Ryan's heavy breathing next to me. I glance over at his fear-stricken face, then sporadic silver bullets rain from the sky, and Ryan is gone. Suddenly, I'm being dragged by my feet. The hard cement grates my head, tearing out my long hair. It's the man with that ugly accent again. I jolt awake, coughing and hacking. Ugh, where am I? The ceiling looks dark and green and pointed. I'm in my tent. Blast that Randy, he carried me to my tent. And then I hear soft footsteps outside. Who is that? Part of me realizes it could just be a guard. But who can trust a guard? There are always inside traitors. Ever since the world began, moles have existed. I have to get out of here. I scamper to my feet and instantly fall down, but I get right back up. Frantically, I unzip my tent zipper and dash out into the night air. Only when I feel the dirt under my feet do I realize I'm barefoot. The fresh adrenaline pumping my heart has sharpened all my other senses. Someone is following me. My nightmare is coming true. Again. Blast, where am I? I stop in my tracks and search frantically in all directions for the shape of the hatch leading to the underground bomb shelter. Abruptly, the unknown person steps in front of me. I open my mouth to scream, but a hard hand slaps over it, and I make no sound. And that concludes Chapter 46. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you come back for Chapter 47, which is called The Wall is Crumbling. If you want to find out more about Brenda's books, you can visit brendasbooks.net. Until next time, take care.